Hey guys, what's going on? For my senior capstone final, I will be doing a story pitch on a screenplay that I wrote at DePaul. The screenplay is called Certified Public Accounting. Certified Public Accounting is a comedy film that takes place all within an office building, a public accounting office. Um, it's basically the story of two young accountants who are on the fast track to making partner, but their plans get interrupted when the office is held hostage by two criminals who enlist them to help steal from the company. So let's go through the characters. Our protagonist is Joe. Joe's about 28. He's a really hard worker. There's nothing more that he wants than to make partner. Um, and then his best friend Parth is also 28. He's also a hard worker, but he fucks around. He hits on women at the office. He's also a first generation from India, but he doesn't have an accent or anything like that. And he keeps his cool throughout the entire situation for the most part. Hector is one of the criminals. He's the leader of the group. He's about 50 years old, aristocratic, smooth. He has swagger. He just is a good leader. People are just attracted to him. And Elliot is his second-hand man. Elliot's about 35, handsome dude, really built, and he was one of Hector's students. Hector used to be an econ professor in England, and Elliot was one of his students. And then there's Mike. Mike is the intern that Parth and Joe have in their group. It's his second day at work when the heist happens. He's really a financial patriot, and he really does things by the books. Then there's Priscilla. In the beginning, Priscilla is posing as an intern, Maritza, but later on we find out that she is aiding Elliot and Hector, and she's actually a criminal. There's Detective Mellon. He basically assembles all the police and crisis managers, and he thinks he's this big kind of hot shot when it comes to these things, but he's kind of bumbling and he can't really control his team. And then there's Natalie. Natalie is Joe's boss. She's the antagonist of the story. She's really manipulative, and she basically pressures Joe to do things that he doesn't really want to do. So the story. Joe and Parth are senior auditors. They're the youngest senior auditors in their building, and they're kind of big shots. It feels like they're like frat boys running the office a little bit. On the intern day, it's early June, so the whole new interns are coming in, for their induction pretty much. And Joe and Parth have files with all the interns' information on it, and they're basically picking which ones that they want. So Joe opts for Mike, the hard worker, thinking that if they have a hard worker on the team, that he'll make partner faster because he'll be able to do more work. Whereas Parth opts for Maritza because of her looks, and he wants to sleep with her. So on their second day, they take a tour of the partner's office. It's really extravagant. It's so far out. Like they have bartenders and chefs and masseuses and a swimming pool, and it's just the most far out, elegant thing that you'd expect in an office place. Joe also meets with Natalie, and she tells him that she knows that he wants to be partner, but he's really going to have to prove himself in the following months if he wants that. And then the break-in happens while they're on this top floor, while Joe and his team are on this top floor. So Hector and Elliot sneak in. They basically shut down all the elevators, so there's no access to that top floor. And then the door leading to the staircase, they put a bomb on it so no one can get in. So they're all locked up in there, and it's basically 30 partners who are all chained to a desk. And then Elliot and Hector are trying to get Joe, Parth, and Mike to help them steal the company information because they can't do it on their own, and they don't trust the partners to do it because they have too much loyalty to the company, so they think if they get two more underling people that they'd be able to help them. So then in Act 2, Joe and Mike converse. They are basically cooking up a way to try and fudge the numbers. Basically, Elliot and Hector want banking information, client banking information from all these big banks and things like that. So Joe and Mike are trying to fudge the numbers and give them false data, whereas Parth is just being social, still hitting on Priscilla and just shooting the shit with Elliot. But Hector eventually takes Joe away from that room, and he just assigns Parth to do all the stealing, and he wants Joe to help him do other things, like bring water bottles to the partners, things like that. And while they're doing this, Hector talks to Joe just about why he became an accountant, about life and just kind of happiness in general. And at first, Joe's a little hesitant to talk to him, but then he starts to warm up to him a little bit. But Joe also goes and talks with Natalie. He manages to sneak out and speak with her. And she tells him that if he wants to be partner, she's basically offering the partnership if he stops the criminals, basically if he kills them. So Joe wants to take credit. He doesn't want the police to come in. He wants this. So meanwhile, the dream team of cops and crisis managers have assembled downstairs, led by Detective Mellon. They are trying their best to just figure out what to do. Then there's an instance where Joe's able to get a gun. He's basically able to steal Hector's, and he points it at him, and he's about ready to kill him. But then he's in a standoff with Elliot, who's also there, and Hector breaks the news to him that Deloitte has been basically auditing false Wells Fargo accounts. So Wells Fargo, and this is actually true what they did, is they were creating duplicates of their clients' bank accounts to make more money off of it. And basically the partners at Deloitte, at this accounting firm, were authorizing it and just approving it in order to get kickbacks for it. So this news really breaks Joe, because he thought these partners were, these great people that could do no wrong, and now he sees that they're criminals as well. So after this, he has a bit of a transition. He really starts warming up to Hector and Elliot and helping them kind of achieve their goal. One of these ways is Hector's in phone dialogue with Detective Mellon, basically asking for demands, things like that, and he kind of warms up the first couple of demands. He says he'll send down the chef and the masseuse and the bartender if they send up like gift baskets, pretty much, of like food and things like that. So in order to make the exchange, an elevator has to go down with the chef, food come up, and Joe's the one that goes down in that elevator and does the swap. So then while they're all waiting for a helicopter to arrive, Hector and Elliot demand Detective Mellon to deliver a helicopter so that they can get away. But while they're waiting for that, Mike slips out, talks to Natalie. She offers him something similar, basically this huge promotion if he'll kill the criminals. So he is able to steal Elliot's gun when he's not paying attention, and he's able to shoot Hector and Priscilla and wound them. And while Hector is wounded and on the ground, Joe's able to grab his gun, and he and Mike basically shoot it out. And Mike doesn't die, but he's seriously hurt while Joe wins the fight. So after Mike goes rogue, the helicopter eventually comes, and it's about to leave. Priscilla, Elliot, and Hector get on, and then Joe decides that he's going to get on too. He's decided that he's just going to leave his life behind and go and join this criminal organization, whereas Parth decides to stay at the office. And then it ends with Joe being back at the criminal's lair, and now he's part of the team. So there are some standout scenes that I'd just like to point out that are kind of highlights in it. One of them is Parth and Elliot's conversations that they have. There's all these cut-tos to the conversations, and they just talk about anything, about women or what life is like in India or white people and things like that. And there's humor, but there's also some truth to what they're saying. There's a scene where Hector has assembled Joe and Parth, and they're trying to decide which of the partners that they have to kill in order to make Detective Mellon think that they're serious about ordering a helicopter. That doesn't actually end up happening, that they end up killing them, but they have a scene where they have all their names up on the board, and they're like, oh, this one has kids, this one's too nice, this one does philanthropy, things like that. And then there's also a character called Kent, the intern coordinator. He's the one person from the office that joins Detective Mellon and this dream team of cops and things like that. And he just stays there throughout the whole time because he feels responsible that one of his interns, Mike, is still up there. So kind of the key theme from this project, from this story that would ring home to a lot of people is, that choice between doing a job for the prestige of it or doing something that's actually going to make you happy, which is a question that a lot of people ask themselves. So the audience for this film, um, because it's a comedy film, it's a heist film, it has action, and it also has this office setting, which I think is really important. Because there's a lot of people that just work in this kind of corporate industry. Everybody knows about accounting being boring, so having this heist set in it makes it just kind of an interesting twist on that. And it shows accountants in kind of this more interesting and savage light. And corporate working professionals can spend money on tickets. So this is a film that would be set kind of in their world, and they would like that. Some similar films and TV shows that can be acquainted to this. It's like Dog Day Afternoon meets Office Space. So, kind of the Stockholm Syndrome that happens in Dog Day Afternoon, that was really funny. Also with, the humor that kind of comes from Office Space, that work humor. And there's also moments like Clerks or The Breakfast Club, when you have kind of this 24-hour story in this contained space, and you just get all these kind of interesting conversations between the different characters that maybe sometimes don't add to the story, but are just there for people to reflect on. And then there's also a little bit of like the 1960 The Apartment and the new TV show on Comedy Central called Corporate, where that kind of it's like a satirical take on corporate structure and bosses and promotions and kind of the hierarchy and things like that. So the budget for this film would be between 30 and 60 million, just depending on actor salaries. If there's any stars attached, that would obviously drive it up. But because it's could all take place in an office building, there's not too much cost to go into like location scouting and things like that. And some potential names for the cast for Parth, Kumail Nanjiani would be a great lead for him. For Joe, someone like Miles Teller or Dave Franco or like a Kit Harington. For Hector, that would be someone like Ewan McGregor or Gerald Butler or like Ralph Fiennes, someone really refined like that. And then for Elliot, someone like Daniel Coelho, Lakeith Stanfield, those two guys from Get Out, or Gary Carr, who had that role of the lead pimp Cece on The Deuce, kind of smooth operators and things like that. So that's my story pitch. Thank you.